this is our Q&A session for the Canada Summer Jobs intern program. We just want to clarify from the beginning, this is about the intent to apply, the terms and conditions, and the application process. We will be holding another session probably at the end of February or beginning of March to go a bit more in detail into the hiring process and more of what the summer requirements in the program itself will look like with the clubs that have actually completed the application and on whose behalf we've submitted an application to the government. So note that in some of your questions, if it's a little more related to some things down the road, we'll get to that in another session. But here's about supporting you in this intent to apply process. We are recording this meeting, so any questions you have, you're welcome to ask. Just make sure that you are aware that it's being recorded. So if that impacts how you ask questions, we want to make sure you know that. You do all have the access to turn your mic off. Turn your mic on, sorry, and speak any questions. You can also use the chat function for that if you'd like. I'm Jocelyn Poirier. I'm the manager of rugby development at Rugby Ontario. So Catherine and I will be leading this session as we've been kind of the main leads on this project so far. So I'll let Catherine introduce herself and we'll get started.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am Catherine Gibbons, the Coach Development and Community Rugby Coordinator with Rugby Ontario. And before I get started, or we get started, we just wanted to acknowledge that Rugby Ontario and our member clubs are situated on traditional Indigenous territories across the province. Rugby Ontario acknowledges that there are 46 treaties and other agreements that cover the territory now called Ontario. Today, I am presenting from Toronto, which is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. So now I'm going to just hand it back to Jocelyn to kick it off, and we're going to do a program overview.
So just letting one more in here. Again, if you have questions as we go, feel free to throw them out there. We're going to kind of take you through the content that was in the intent to apply. So hopefully, if it was clear enough, you don't have too many questions, and this may answer it in itself. But if things come up as we go, feel free to jump in. So the Canada Summer Jobs Program is a government program, right? It is funding to organizations to support the hire of a youth. So they have to be ages 15 to 30, which is probably the most key piece of that eligibility, right? Or one of the barriers that may come across in terms of applications. So they do have to be between 15 and 30. We're looking to provide quality work experience for youth, developing their professional skills. Rugby Ontario is applying to this on behalf of your club. So we are asking you to apply to us to let us know that you want us to apply on behalf of your club. So we would be the employer, but they'll be working specifically with your club. And we would receive the funding and do the payment part of that process. So you don't have to worry about the financial piece. Yeah, the youth that are hired act as support for clubs. So we're looking to grow rugby, as you're all aware, and we'll see more. And each position, this part is key as well, is funded based on your government defined catchment area. So this is where our application does not guarantee that you will get funding. It does come back to where your club resides and what funding there is and what other applications there would be for those areas. So that part is out of our hands, as you'll see more later. Right. So in terms of sort of our program, what we're trying to do by applying for these and having this sort of network of community interns is we're providing an additional paid staff member, the intern, to each of the clubs that are part of this. They are just paid minimum wage. We're hoping to use this network of interns to support the growth and development of rugby and clubs and their communities across our province, in line with our strategic plan. We'll get into some more of the details around that as well. And we're looking to provide, as we said, kind of quality work experience specifically in this area of community sport and community development, sport development, and hoping that we're sort of building the quality of applicants who are going to continue to give back to our sport, right? And continue to be involved in these important roles for years to come. And we're doing all this while hopefully meeting as many of the local and national priorities that we can, right? So we're hoping to support the clubs, working towards our strategic plan, and then also meeting the needs of the government in terms of their priorities that they've set out by running this program. All right. And Catherine, I'll let you get into the intent to apply.
Okay, thanks, Jocelyn. So as with previous years, we ask our clubs to complete the intent to apply to let us know that they have a desire to have an intern work for them in the summer. We ask that these are completed in full to ensure that we understand your full intent for the intern. This year, Rugby Ontario is making more of a conscious effort to meet those government national priorities, local priorities, and ensure that the work the CSJs are doing supports as well our strategic pillars. So that is why you'll see in the intent to apply a list of terms and conditions that you must agree to. And we have a high focus on questions 5, 6, 7, and 8, which all address those things that I just mentioned. So as Jocelyn kind of hinted at before, by completing the intent to apply, we are not guaranteeing this year that we are applying for a position for you. And this is because we do want to make that conscious effort that you are all aware of what the national and local priorities of your area are, and that you are working to best situate your intern to be successful in their position this summer. It is a requirement of the program to offer quality job and learning experiences. So we are more so making this statement to say that we want you to think about what your intern's doing in preparation for the summer. If we believe that you maybe are missing a piece, we will be reviewing all the applications on January 3rd and 4th, and we will be letting clubs know who maybe we feel are missing something to give us more information. We don't want to be exclusive. We want to apply for all of your positions. We just want to make sure that upfront this year, clubs are best preparing themselves for success. And they're best preparing the success of their interns, which is why we are asking you to make sure you complete specifically questions 5, 6, 7, and 8 well for us. After we apply for the positions, there is still no guarantee that you will get the position. We have typically been very successful in getting almost all, if not all, of the positions we have applied for. But it is important for us to note that the decision of which applications get applied for is strictly done by the government. We have no say in what is approved and what is not approved. And as Jocelyn mentioned, it is based off of your catchment area and your government riding. So depending on the priorities of that area or the number of applications that came into that area, it may differ which positions we get funded for and how many weeks we would get that funding for. So just to talk a little bit more specifically of who should and should not apply for this. Again, we want you to use this resource. We want you all to apply, but we want you to be successful and we want the intern to have a good experience. So clubs who should apply are ones who have an individual who is going to be available and committed to supporting that intern throughout the summer. You have read and acknowledged our responsibilities that are laid out in one of, I think it's the second page of the intent to apply, which we will read through again, and we'll get into more detail as we continue in this presentation. And that your plan for your intern meets at least one of the local priorities of your catchment area, one of your national priorities, and that it also addresses the area of inclusion. As you will see in the local and national priorities, many of them are centered around inclusion. So that is why we have listed the 7 tasks below as also something we would like our clubs to think about and focus on having their interns complete. On the flip side, clubs who should not complete the intent are ones who are unsure about what you're going to have your intern complete at all. Clubs who do not believe they'll be able to have their intern complete enough hours. These are typically full-time positions. We do not really have much say what we do get funded for, and if those can change into part-time or if they have to stay as full-time. 2 years ago, it was allowed to be part-time. Last year, it was only allowed to be full-time. This is, again, strictly up to the government. So you must be prepared that you might have to have your intern work full-time hours each week. And then you shouldn't apply if your tasks don't meet any of the priorities, as well if you do not have an individual who will be dedicated to being able to support your intern. I don't.
Any questions before we continue? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll carry on. So we're going to get more into details of the hiring process specifically in terms of which parts the clubs are responsible versus which parts we will be responsible for or be supporting in. But generally, the recruitment and selection falls on the club. So we will support that with a general job description that you'll be able to edit or tweak to fit your specific region. But distributing it to your community and reviewing the applications, conducting the interviews, selecting that candidate. Those pieces will all be done by members of the club. So that mentor, leader, and any other people at the club you want to have involved in that. And just note again that we want to have a fair and equitable hiring process. So while you may have, a previous candidate, a previous community rugby intern or an ideal kind of candidate in mind, just making sure that this is a fair and equitable process. Other pieces for the club are the task delegation, so that day-to-day management of tasks and ensuring that you have enough work for this intern to complete and are managing their work on a day-to-day basis. That'll be for the mentor from the club. Supervision, including tracking the intern work completion. So again, making sure that they're actually completing that work, that they know what they're doing. Mentorship, so providing some guidance and mentorship in terms of new skills and opportunities for the intern, particularly in line with their interests and their strengths. And then communication with Rugby Ontario.
Perfect. And then just to outline what our responsibilities are in this kind of 3-way partnership, we like to see it between us, the intern, and the club. The first one being the administration and communication with Service Canada. So we deal with everything to do with the government. We do the application. We have all the communication with the project managers. We submit all the necessary forms for them. And then as well as all of our necessary payroll documents, we will send those to the interns to ensure that we are able to pay them based off the funds that we receive. As Jocelyn mentioned, we will also provide you with the general job description and interview templates and other resources that are needed for the success of your club and the intern. And then we are also responsible for intern orientation and management. So on a higher level, we will conduct an orientation at the beginning of their internship just to go over what the CSJ program is, what our goals are from it, and what we expect of the intern from our side. We will also provide ongoing support such as regular weekly meetings and any training that they may need that's specific to the overall goals of the program. And then what are the responsibilities of the intern? So their primary role is to help grow and develop rugby at their rugby club and in their community. All the work that the intern completes must be done in the catchment area of your club and that they have been applied or accepted to work in. Then we've split it into kind of the two parts here. They do have required tasks that they must complete for us, such as attending our orientation, completing onboarding forms, attending our weekly meetings, submitting their weekly timesheets, which we also ask that you are reviewing and making sure they're complete, what they're submitting to us is correct. And then submitting biweekly reports. These help us at the end of the entire process explain to the government what the intern did for your area, and then represent Rugby Ontario at regional events if required, such as attending the minor festivals and being some of our boots on the ground there, as we would love to attend all, but there are so many that happen. And then what they're required to do with you is make sure that they are developing a list of goals with the club contact that will be in charge of them, their mentor, reviewing the list of tasks that you have laid out for them, representing your club in a respectful and professional manner within the community, regular check-in meetings with yourself, whether that be you're setting up weekly meetings, bi-weekly meetings. We are expecting them to be communicating with you as much as you're communicating with them. And then we are also asking that they get to attend one club executive meeting. Part of the purpose and the hope that we have for this program is that these become our next generation of leaders in rugby. And we would love for them to be able to experience more the administration side and what it would be like to be a board member or just on that other side and not just a rugby athlete. You can be involved in so many different ways in our game. So this is just one ask that we do have of clubs. They can attend all if you want, but we just ask that they attend at least one to see that other side.
Right. So this is the hiring process that we talked about earlier. So again, Rugby Ontario, we will send a general job description. We'll kind of make a template, and then there'll be a process for you to tweak it again to those local priorities to your specific club tasks. Make sure that is reflected in your specific job description. And then there'll be a link for the youth to apply through. So just making sure that you're actually promoting that link, right? Making sure that they're applying through the correct venue. So all those applications will come to Rugby Ontario. We will screen, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we will screen for just the eligibility piece, basically that they fit that 15 to 30 year old age group, and then we'll send them on to you. Yeah, we covered all that. So promotion. Okay, once we send you that package of, here's everyone who's applied for your position, it'll be up to the clubs to review those applications and decide who they want to interview, and then conduct that interview process. Again, we will provide an interview guide, so a basic guideline for you to follow with some standard questions. And again, you can tweak that a little bit to better meet your needs, but hopefully that's kind of taking some of that weight or that work off of you and providing us some consistency as well in terms of a fair and equitable process. And then once you've completed your interviews and you've selected the candidate you'd like to offer the job to, before you offer that job, you have to confirm that you've received a funding agreement from us. So in other years, we've waited for that funding to come in and then started the hiring process. What we've said this year is, in order to hit the ground running, we may allow clubs to promote their jobs and conduct the interviews before receiving that funding agreement, but it would only be able to be a conditional offer until we've actually received that funding agreement. The other piece is, again, to make sure it's a fair and equitable process, we ask that you submit your interview notes back to us, as well as sort of your rationale, name and contact information for whoever you're selecting. We'll give you the green light, and you can go ahead and contact the successful candidate with a a real job offer, or in the case that you're ahead of the funding agreement, it may have to be a conditional job offer. And then once the funding agreement is in, that offer has been made and has been accepted, Rugby Ontario will then contact the successful candidate and take over the onboarding and payroll forms and all that piece, and arrange the orientation for those, all of the interns. Any questions so far? I'll let Catherine get to the full timing piece here.
So just to go over timelines, realize we maybe left out a couple dates here, but as you can see, our first big date is the due date for this intent to apply. It is end of day Monday, January 2nd. As mentioned, if we feel that clubs are missing a few pieces in their application, we will reach out to you on the 3rd or the 4th and ask that you get that back to us as soon as possible, as the deadline for us to apply for your positions is January 12th. So it's going to be a busy first week back for us. But that is when the applications are due. Then it becomes kind of that waiting game. But as Jocelyn mentioned, we are hoping this year that we can start the job promotion and hiring process earlier on a conditional offer, just so that we can attract a few more individuals to the program, but also to ensure that when we do receive notice, clubs are able to hit the ground running, as it is pretty much one of the worst times of years for us to be able to hire these interns. It's super busy. Typically our interns start at the beginning of May. And so the other date in there that we don't have up there is that we will host a kind of club orientation, another Q&A session, as Jocelyn mentioned, at the end of February, beginning of March, to just re-go over the hiring process and then also discuss in detail again what we are requiring of our clubs and of our interns in the summer. Okay, now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open another page. I just want to get the website open. Okay.
Any questions while she's doing that? That's most of the information. She's going to kind of take you through a bit of the backside in terms of our process and what that would look like if you wanted to go about submitting an application for yourself, either instead of going through us or in addition to going through us. Jim, yeah.
Hi, can you hear me? Sorry, I don't know if mine. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, question, because last year I know we applied, unfortunately didn't get to like the middle of May, which for us is kind of the earlier, obviously the earlier the better. If we could do April, we'd love to. But I guess from the government, the first day it can start as like May 1 type thing, or can it be earlier than that?
So the first day is typically that last weekend of April, first weekend of May. It changes kind of every year what it is. And then depending on how many weeks we receive funding for, which I'll explain in a bit when I take you through the application, you can either have them start right on that day, or depending on what the government says, they're pretty flexible with the start time. We can have them start a little bit later in the summer. The only requirement of the government that they have is that all work is completed by a specific end date, which is always around that Labor Day long weekend. Last year was September 3rd, so I'm assuming it's the 2nd or the 3rd this year, and all hours and work need to be completed by that point. So if, let's say, you only get funded for an 8-week position, work back from there. If you don't see your need for your intern until July, then we can have them start in July, but we will be providing specific start dates as well, to make sure that on the admin side, it is not too busy.
So, sorry, I think I might have missed the very first part. So is there a limit, the start date? Or...
So there is. So it's as soon as we hear from the government about funding, it's typically the last weekend of April, first weekend, or the first weekend of May.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe it'll be an earlier one this year. It's up to the government though.
That's why we're hoping to have enough things in place such that by the time you hear that you've got the funding, you just call up your person and say, it's a go, you're starting tomorrow, you know, or maybe not tomorrow, but that you can kind of be as ready as possible to get that start as early as possible.
I see there's some stuff in the chat. Did I miss anything, Jocelyn, or no?
No, I think you're good. That was just a question about the content there. I said, yeah, most of the content is pulled from the intent to apply, which we'll show as well. And also that this recording will be posted on our YouTube page. So if you missed anything or you want to go back over anything, you'll be able to re-watch or share with anyone else who may have missed it tonight.
Perfect. So yeah, now we just wanted to kind of show you the back end and the process that we go through in terms of the application side of things, in case clubs want to one day apply for the CSJ on their own, or they're just curious as to what the back end of this looks like. So a lot of it is on the Government of Canada's site, Canada Summer Jobs. You would just search that. And then you'll see there's sections down the side here, overview of the program, explaining what the government sees a quality job actually being. The eligibility pieces, that's both for the employer. The employer has to be an eligible organization, as well as for the intern. Assessment criteria, how they're actually grading our application. There's points that are given, and that's how you would rank if on a scale against other applications coming in. Tips on how to write your application, and then actually how you would apply. Another document that's in here that you can find on that web page is an actual applicant guide. So this is their guidebook for how to apply. It goes into a lot more detail if you scroll through on the application itself, as well as when things are due. So, as we can see, kind of answer my question. It's in here. Earliest job date start is April 24th. Latest job start date is July 24th. And the end date must be by September 2nd. So sorry, Jim, I missed that earlier, but the earliest day to start would be April 24th. And then this is just an example of the actual application. So as you can see, there is a full section on the employer itself. So you do need to have a business number to be able to apply for these positions. And then just some more information about your organization. This is all online. Your health and safety practices, the work environment, so all about your policies. All of these get graded. The more you have, the higher points you have. And then we go into the specific job details. So we apply for, we call them their sports coordinators. And then in here is where we have to list out the actual tasks and responsibilities they're going to complete. So in the past, they've been a little bit more general, but this year we really want to make them a little more specific to each of your catchment areas, which is why we're asking you to fill out those plans in the intent to apply. Talks about the skills that they plan to develop, and then the supervision and mentoring plan. Rugby Ontario acts as the supervisor. It'll either be myself or Jocelyn's name in here. And then for the mentoring piece, this will be your club contact. So the name that you included on your intent to apply, or you do include, will go on to the actual application itself. And then in here, we see what the national priorities are. They are in the intent to apply as well for you. And then your local priorities. We have included the link to how to look at those. And I will talk you through how to find those in a second. I just want to explain how we do the funding piece as well. We put in the anticipated start date, the number of weeks, and then the number of hours and the amount that they will be paid. We pay the minimum wage, which I'm almost positive is $15.50 going into next year, plus their MERCs. Mandatory employment costs is what that stands for. And then we always apply for 16 weeks at the 35 hours a week. Typically we get 8 weeks of that, but we try to get you a full-time position for the whole summer, but that is also determined by the government. Just going to quickly show you the local priorities, which, as I said, the link is in the intent to apply. You will come here and you will just search your catchment area. So I'll search Whitby because that's where Rugby Ontario is located. So you'll see that all of these are the local priorities for Whitby. For this project, we can say that it'll support our organization. It probably is not supporting accommodation and food services, so we don't have as many to say, but each catchment area will be different. For example, if I search just, oops, Aurora, oh, am I spelling something wrong? Aurora, there we go. I'm pretty sure they're in this catchment area. Maybe they will be, their project will be targeting visible minorities, persons with disability, or low-income individuals and families. So as you can see, each of them are a little bit different. So we just ask that you take into consideration what your local priorities are. Now, are there any questions on that piece? Otherwise, we were just going to walk through the intent to apply. Okay. So most of the information on the first 2 pages of the intent to apply are things that we have just covered. So we ask that you still read through it. There's some links to the Canada Summer Jobs Program, our timelines. When you hit next, these are the terms and conditions that we are requiring clubs to agree to. So here is our hiring process information and those responsibilities of the club, Rugby Ontario, and the intern. Now you must hit yes to go into the survey. If you hit no, the survey will end, as we do require you to agree to these conditions. Once you go into the survey, you would pick your club. Let's just say we're Barhaven for the sake of it. You will fill in your name, your role, development, address. I'm just going to do some letters, phone number, and then whatever year you've applied for previously. And here is where we ask that you include a lot of information. This is where we want to understand what your plan is for your intern. Ask that it does include one of these, and then if there's additional pieces you want them to work on, that can also be included in this section. Then number 6 is asking about the national priorities. You can click which ones you believe your project will fit. This is how you will get to the link for your local priorities. You will just type in the local priority here. And then these are our strategic pillars that we believe best fit this project. So if you would like to look through our strategic plan, we have also linked it here, but which of these pillars you believe that your CSJ intern will support. And then this is important to include your address of your club, or wherever you practice to ensure that we have the correct catchment area that we are applying for. And then any additional questions or comments that might come up if after this you need to digest a little bit and then you have a question, you can throw it in here. So once that's done, you just hit done. I'm not going to hit done, but that is the application for our positions. Now, that is the extent of what we have. I don't know, Jocelyn, if we missed anything, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
I just basically wanted to give you a rundown and an opportunity to hear it from us instead of reading content, because it's a lot of content sometimes, and ask any questions you may have or get clarification about any of these pieces. The only thing I'll add here is that it is really important if you can add as many details as possible or as much information as possible to that in general to your application, but specifically that task piece. So question number 5. Don't feel that you have to just pick one of those 7 and put that and you're done, right? Those are there to kind of start you thinking about how this person could be used, what they could be able to do. So maybe they're doing one of those things and a whole bunch of other things. Maybe they're doing some version or related thing to something there, right? That sort of sparked another initiative maybe that you've got going that's related. So yeah, the more information you give us, as you can see, we're translating this information into our own application on your behalf. So the more information we have, the better an application we can submit on your behalf. Right, we'll wait a few minutes in case anyone has questions. But otherwise, yeah, that's all we had. So we'll give you back an extra 20 minutes of your night.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Jen.
Have a good Christmas.
You too.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care.